So welcome back, Tom, our weekly podcast. So apologies for missing last week, but I thought I'd sleep instead.
How are you? Feeling better?
Much better, thank you. Fired up and ready to go for this one. We've decided to change things this week, and instead of taking one of your existing blogs and questioning on that, we've gone out to the wild and wacky world of social media and asked people what they think. Always a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
But we've had some great questions back.
We have.
And I think
some we're going to save, I think.
Some we're going to save, but if we can get through 2 or 3 now, I think that'll be a good session. So I'm going to fire you up straight away with a question that's come in on shoulder health.
Yeah.
What's your views? What's your tips?
What was the question again? It was like, what was the smaller tips for it?
But basically, just talk about shoulder health.
Right.
I think we know a lot about the bigger muscles, but actually looking at the small stuff.
So, in a nutshell, you should read my article, Shoulder Stabilizers Done Right, or Executed Properly. Whatever.
No, I'm not going to let you get away with that.
No, I'm going to elaborate. So, the main point that I would look at first is positioning of the shoulder within the socket. So I was experiencing shoulder pain for quite a few years, and it was getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Nothing was fixing it, invariably. And then I met Dr. Peter Lundgren, who I now work with professionally as a chiropractor, physical therapist, dry needling expert. He's just a genius when it comes to the body and injuries, and he's now delving into neurology. Anyway, what you'll see in the article is it talks about positioning of the shoulder within the socket before you look at the stabilizers. So you want me to talk about all the stabilizer muscles and how to work them, but the first place I would look at, which is what we're going to be teaching on our course, Rehab Meets World Record Strength in Switzerland at the end of this month, is partial get-ups. And he got this from his training theory and his experience with regards to kettlebell training and what he learned from Pavel, I think you pronounce his surname, Satsuline. He's known as a kettlebell expert, but he's very good with regards to strength training, rehab, prehabilitation, injury prevention, all that kind of thing. But he's got some great points of views, and it's a case of the American or Western way of thinking was always go towards rotator cuff movements, mainly external rotation. Shoulders hurt, do that. Which can make sense, but if the shoulder's not positioned well within the socket, none of that's going to work, because you're going to be recruiting muscles in a faulty pattern. So I was, inverted commas, balanced. We talk about Charles Poliquin's structural balance numbers. I know we're going to come to him later, but he's got the 4 main shoulder stabilizers. Posterior deltoid, external rotators being infraspinatus, teres minor, scapular retractors. What have I missed? Lower trap 3. And I was fairly balanced in all of them. Maybe the trap 3 not so much, wasn't so good on that. So I was fairly balanced with regards to I'd hit the certain numbers. So just we'll take a nice easy variable. So you should be able to do on the predictor lifts, the shoulder stabilizers, between 7.6 and 10.6% of your flat bench press. So if you can bench press biochromial, if you can bench press say 100 kilos, your external rotation elbow and knee should be around 10 kilos for 8 reps. Now I could hit these numbers, but I was still experiencing a little shoulder pain, to the point where it stopped me pressing, and it was frustrating. Until Peter was like, do get-ups, get the shoulder position in the socket. So you could think that my shoulder was slightly subluxated, it was slightly out, it wasn't in position for me to actually recruit the stabilizers properly. So all I was doing was developing improper recruitment patterns. So first step is, pro tip is, get good at partial get-ups. On the website you'll see some data, normative data, again a la Charles Poliquin structural balance theory. So you should be able to do 40% of your bench press for 8 reps.
Okay.
For instance.
So remind me what a get-up is.
So you lie on your back, your arm, elbows locked, and you roll to the side. It's a partial get-up, not a full get-up. So I'm not a big fan of Turkish get-ups, which is you'd lie with your arm bent, kettlebell on the floor, and you have to go from there to standing up with the kettlebell overhead. This is just the first part of the movement, which is essentially arm locked, roll to your side. And then the main technique point is after you've rolled over to the side, upper arm or arm perpendicular to the floor, you then retract your shoulder blade, retract your arm into its socket and roll back down. First time I did this, we're talking I was using 12.5 kilos, nothing. I had the most insane soreness the next day. Because you do stuff and you think, well, that can't really work. You don't really realise what you're doing until you try it. And Peter was talking about different connections in the brain. This is stuff that I've taken from him and I start talking about a lot more. So it's a case of creating new pathways for your brain to go, this is the right position for your shoulder to be in. And then I went and started getting better at external rotation, trap threes, so on and so forth. And eventually it solved my shoulder problems.
Okay, that's cool. So in a nutshell, it's start with the socket position, then work out which muscle it is that's causing the problem.
Yes.
Fix that.
Exactly right. That's my theory on it. If you're not, then you could be skipping a step. There's no harm in doing the get-ups. Mm-hmm. There's no negative consequence. So I say do the get-ups, get to a certain point with regards to the normative data, hit the either the ratio of your body weight or the ratio compared to your bench press, and then look to get into all the rotator cuff movements.
Excellent. Thank you. That was going to be a one-liner when we talked earlier. So
I wanted it to be a one-liner. You're going to let me.
No, you're not going to get away.
No.
Right, we're going to completely change subjects now. We're going to get into what I know is one of your passions, which is log lifting.
Yeah.
Somebody's come in with the question, what's the chance of all 4 log world records, that's across the different weight categories, being held by Brits this year?
Yeah. I mean, it's also a short-sighted question because I think the female category is also heavily influenced by the Brits. I think they've got 3 categories, main categories, and I think they're all held by Brits as well. So that'd be quite interesting. Anyway, the guy that asked that is being trained by me, and he has an interest in breaking the under 80 world record. He has a chance. I think I saw another guy recently. So you've got 4 main categories for men: under 80 kilos, under 90 kilos, under 105 kilos, and then what will be known as open, so any weight. So the under 80 category. Now, I don't scroll on social media, so if you don't tag me in things, I rarely see it. I was tagged in the under 80 world record. Or someone sent that to me. Did you see this guy? And I think it's an Aussie. And he hit 143. So that's the world record at the moment. I think he jerked it, but he looked good for more. He looked very powerful, very explosive. So I know that the client I'm training has eyes on that, just to keep him occupied between now and the end of the year, when we are going to ramp up to Worlds, where he's going to need a more all-round approach. So he's now focused on that. So is it a possibility that he could break it? Absolutely. He's got it in him. He's got things he's working on, like anybody else. I won't go into his specific weaknesses, but the possibility that he could break it is definitely there. The only thing that I'm not sure of is anyone going to break it between now and then? Is anyone going to go and do 145 and then lengthen it? Don't know. But the possibility for him to break it, yeah, for sure, between now and the year. Under 90, I did hold it very briefly, and then my good friend Rob went and beat it by a kilo. He might extend it this year. You don't know. I think he's staying at under 90 this year. I think he's doing something this weekend. I think he wants the deadlift as well. Mm-hmm. I think that's his main focus, but if I know Rob, he'll be fit for both.
And what's the record?
167 kilos for the under 90. The 105 kilo record is the one I'm going for, and I think that's why he's asking it, because he knows I'm going for that. I only really play around with the log at the moment, although the workshop with Andy Bolton last week or week before kind of piqued my interest with regards to maybe getting good at the bench press and deadlift again, because I haven't done it in a while. But the under 105 record is currently like 186 or 186 and a half. Regardless, I need to go 187 or more. Again, I know what I'm doing at the moment. I know I have it in me to get near it this year, I believe. But I don't know what other guys are doing. I don't know if there's another 105 who's interested in breaking it. You've got to remember, you could probably classify me as a log specialist now. I'm only really training for that. So I'm really worried about it. I'm not doing the whole strongman thing. So maybe I think the American 105 had some big lifters this year, but don't forget they're also training other events. Mm-hmm. But again, if I can hold it for even 5 minutes, that's cool. Tick the box and move on. I'm not worried about it standing for years and years and years. And then you've got the open category. So the world record is currently 228 or 229 by Big Z. He did it in Brazil quite a few years ago. It's like the first 500-pound log. And you've got the World Log Lifting Championships coming up, the Giants Live one. And they attract the biggest names because they've probably got bigger prize money. And out of the Brits that are going, who have a possibility, you got Graham Hicks, Luke Stockman, Aaron Page. Let's start with Aaron. I know Aaron pretty well from his time here. He hit. Now, whether people call it official, unofficial, whether he stabilised it or not, he had 216 up above his head just this past weekend. And again, I was sent the lift. And the line was incredible. I think what happened, so when Aaron first started with me, however many years ago, he was what we would call all power, no control. And it reminded me of that. Because he has incredible fast twitch capability, incredible leg drive. And maybe the way it went up, he doesn't have a problem with the clean. The clean's automatic. It goes to his chest like it's nothing. Then he dips, and he's so explosive from there, he almost leg drives it to lock out. And he did this with 216. What you see with, not just Aaron, but people that are very explosive, is their drop-off is rather big. So 216. Now, if he had 230 on his chest that day, or in that moment, he probably would have hit it. Because the power is amazing, and he's push pressing from what I saw from the video now. So it's a more stable base as opposed to bending his knees and getting under it like he was when he first hit 200 kilos, for instance. But what you see with weightlifters who are really explosive like that is they can hit 216. You put 220, which as a percentage is not a lot, and they get stuck. So there's a massive drop off. So 216, he looked like if he had brought that down, he could have done another rep with it. Right. It flew up that big, that well. So that officially or unofficially breaks the British record. So has he maybe wound up Graham Hicks, who's going to want to get his British record back? I don't know. But there's a couple of things. So when I hit the world record, after that I'd achieved something, and it allowed me to understand how best to compete, and it allowed me to push on with breaking the next record. So this is a big thing for Aaron, because I think it's one of the first big record or big title he's achieved. So this could help him really kick on and give him that confidence to then go and, because I said it to him from day dot. He came in, the first ever session he hit was a 100 kilo log. Within 3 years he was at 200. And I said, you've got the capability of doing 240 or more. I still believe that. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's going to give him the wherewithal to kick on. But obviously, when you wind up you should never give your opponents a reason to improve. Don't badmouth them. Don't post bigger lifts than them. You look at what Luke Stonkman did that same evening, I think, or the morning after, hit 220, which is again 4 kilos over what Aaron did, but made it look easy. And then Graham Hicks has probably gone in the gym and hit more recently as well. It gives it extra fire, creates competitive nature. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's me being the uber competitor. Strongman's a very friendly sport, so they want to push each other on. But the bottom line is, someone really does want to fucking win. You speak about Eddie Hall and his mindset. He likes Thor, or he liked, he was friends with Brian Shaw, but ultimately he didn't want to fucking lift the deadlift. He wanted them to fail at some point. And he says that in interviews, and that's the kind of mentality I would be taking into it. So, possibility of them hitting 230. I spoke about this with Mikkel Licht via message the other day. So, if you could throw Iron Bibby into the mix, I think he could hit it. The issue you've got is sometimes you see Giants Live do what I would call odd jumps. The way they did it last year was good because they allowed the lifter to pick whether they want to be in or not. So they have set jumps, and they'll all be told maybe beforehand or in the meeting. So you've got to go 200, 210, 220, and then we do the record, which would be normal jumps. But I've seen jumps get smaller than bigger. So it'd be like you can do 200, then everyone's got to do 206 or 211 because then they want the British record, and then it goes from 211 to 228, which is it goes from 10 kilo jump to 20 kilo jumps. Yeah. Retarded. So last year they didn't do that. They said they could jump in and jump out, and Bibby picked his to a T. So did Hicksy. He just stumbled with the 220, even though he'd hit it in training. I think it's because he hit it in training too early. Now they're all experienced with peaking. It's going to be interesting to see what comes together. So I think Aaron and Hicksy are only training the log, or really only focusing on that. Whereas Luke, I think is training a lot of other events and is doing the Arnolds in between. So whether he hits that peak, that 220 or more, we'll see. I think Hicksy and Bibby are the most likely.
Mm-hmm.
Hicksy, I think, has got a great clean, strongest shoulders you've ever seen, and he push presses really well. It's whether the conditions on the day, the rest periods between lifts, all these other factors, although they're all experienced in it, all of these other factors, because it's a show, we'll see what happens. Because the British record is now 216, I'm going to assume Giants Live make them do 217 as one of the options, and then it could jump to then 229. Although maybe they'll have 221 because Bibby did 220 last year, and what they want to do is usually see a bigger lift. So they set the show up to go, yes, we've hit a bigger lift this year, or an American record, or this, that, and the other. Well, I suppose Rob Kearney could be thrown in the mix as well. He uses a jerk technique, but he hit 215 last year. So you never know with him either.
Why do you think there are so many good British lifters?
With the log all round?
Yeah.
Well, I think strongman in England it's been going for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a bigger pyramid. I've been lifting the log for 7-8 years. So same with someone like Hicksy, maybe longer. What compared to other countries?
Yeah.
Couldn't give you a really definitive answer. The Americans are great pressers as well. You can't count them out. Robert Oberst, I believe, has been invited. He's a great log presser. He's got 210 to 220 in him, I believe. I don't know what makes.
Is it the competition itself that drags other people on? Is it?
I don't know. I don't know why there's specific Brits, but obviously it's in England.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least this competition is going to be in England. I don't think there's anything that sets us apart. I think the main thing is we've been doing it longer, and maybe they want it more. I love the log lift. It's a classic because it doesn't train. It trains more not just brute strength but athleticism as well. There's a big technical aspect,
mm-hmm.
Like Olympic weightlifting. But because you can push press it, there's also a brute strength aspect. So it kind of blends all the strength qualities that I think are quite important, from technique to sheer power and determination. Whereas other events, it's different elements. But if we go back to the original question, which is could a Brit hold all the world records? The conditions have to be good, and the jumps have to be good, and then you maybe need to hit a perfect storm, which only comes around once in your lifetime. Because mimicking competition conditions, unless you've been there, is difficult. So for Graham, I think he's done this before. I'm not sure if Luke did it last year. I can't remember if Aaron was in it last year. But mimicking all of that and then putting that together, training on the specific log. I think Hicksy did that recently. I think Luke's got a similar log. All of these factors add up.
Mm-hmm. So usually the more experienced lifter holds an advantage. Right.
But do I think it can happen? For sure. I think it'd be very exciting to see someone break Big Z's record. Again, some of these guys are doing it, and Z was training for loads of different events. Maybe Z had more in him, but the record's only 229, so to see 230 would be quite cool.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Good question. Generated a lot there. So, next question is from me, and it's someone that I keep hearing you refer to through all these podcasts and all through the blogs. The name is Charles Poliquin, and I know he's a very special person to you, and I thought I'd like to hear more from you about him and the influence he's had on your particular career.
Yeah. So Charles has been, or is, a long-term mentor of mine. I first started working when I first became a personal trainer. I started. Came out of uni and I knew bits and pieces, but you want to learn more I was always driven to get results. And there were basically two avenues I had in front of me, or I was made aware of. This is not pre-internet days, as Will might make fun of me for, but there wasn't as much out there. So you had Charles Poliquin and you had Paul Chek. Charles Poliquin was muscle, strength, athletic performance. Paul Chek was at least veering more to rehabilitation and prehabilitation, so preventing injuries and whatever. So my manager at the time said, "Go and do Charles' stuff," because she'd met him at the time, Liesl, and she said, "You'll love his stuff." So in 2009, 2008 or 9. I feel old now, John. 2008 or 9, I did his PICP 1 in Ireland.
PICP 1?
Poliquin International Certification Program. PICP 1 was called PICP 1 Upper Body, and his teachers, the people teaching that course, were Andre Benoit, one of his long-term athletes. So he trained into the Olympics, Winter Olympics, and then the other guys, the Irish guys, Owen Lacey and John O'Connor, and they taught the upper body structural balance. So you learnt about the upper body structural balance testing, how it works, why they use it. You went through a load of assistance exercises and a little bit of program design. And this is in Ireland, and they had students from all over the world. And it was like 40 to 50 strong. It was a lot of people. It was rammed. Then I did natural progression, was to do level 2, went back to Ireland, and that was the lower body. It was a few more days. I think it was, as opposed to 3 days, it was 4 or 5 days. And again, how they do the structural balance and training and assessments, then training and program design for the lower body. And they kind of just take things on a little bit, and then again more assistance work and things, and how they run things. A lot of training. The level 2 was the worst for me, because I remember being in a group with a guy with a dud knee. So like, anyone with injuries, and this guy puts his hand up, fuck, he's in our group. You can see he's got one of those bandages around his knees. Like, I can't squat, I can't bend my knee at the moment. It's like, can you do posterior chain? Yeah, right. All of you guys are doing posterior chain the whole week. I was like, fuck. So we ended up doing, I remember doing 8-8-16 on reverse hyper in Good Morning or something like that, paired. It was the worst fucking thing ever. But they didn't care about, it wasn't necessarily quality. It was a case of, they wanted to see people work hard and go through their protocols.
Yeah.
But it was horrible doing that with them. And then from there, enjoyed it still. And my weak point after that was nutrition. And I was like, right, well, what's his biosignature? And it was all about hormones. I was like, oh, I don't know what it's about. And like anything else, dive in, book it on, makes you learn in between. You do all the reading list, still don't know fuck all. And then did that alongside his PIMST, which stand for Poliquin Instant Muscle Strengthening Techniques. There's kinesiology tricks, acupoints and things like that. And that was all done at Fulham Football Club, which was interesting. Oh. And then after that, participated in a body composition internship, semi-private. So there's only 10 of us. I think there was 9 or 10 of us. And it was basically what he does with all his, anybody to get lean. What does Charles do to get people lean? And we did touch on a bit of athletic performance enhancement, because there were a lot of students that were interested in that. So I spent a week doing that, 5 days. That was really cool. And then the level 3 PICP. So it was the next one up. That was more about athletic performance and how they do things there. And I didn't do the level 4. But yeah, I've spent a lot of time, many years, studying from Charles, reading his stuff. One of the first things I tell students is go and read all of his old articles. So he actually, not many people know, but he was one of the people that started T Nation. You know T Nation? It's a website, Testosterone Nation. Okay. And there's articles from 1998 on there that he wrote way back, and they're still pertinent. So I tell students, like, oh, where do I start for learning? Don't worry about books. Go and read all of his articles on there. Obviously read mine, because there's a huge benefit there. Of course. Yeah. But read all of his articles there. And then on the Poliquin group website, which is obviously when he split and then made Strength Sensei, there's still some articles on there from him. There's a wind back. One of my students sent me that. Have you heard of Wayback? Type it into Google, and you can scroll back through his old websites. Not many people know that trick. That's a real good trick. One of my students sent to me. That was cool, because I went back to his original website, which is Poliquin Strength Institute .net or whatever, and we're talking his first web. It reminded me of all these other things he used to do on that website. Anyway, read all this stuff, because what I find is people, if you think back when I was looking for, it's either going to be Charles Poliquin or Paul Chek, I didn't know what I really wanted, but it'll set that base. What I see now is trainers don't really know where they want to go with things. I want this, I want this, I want this. And the education junkies without actually applying and knowing what they want to do. Charles' stuff is brilliant. It's practical, you can apply it straight away, and it's just a plethora of information. He was a Bible, and he's the first to admit that he didn't come up with anything. I know he's got the biosignature, but I know where he got that from. Not many people do that. Know that. But he uses such a plethora of information, and it gives you such a lovely base to build from with regards to strength training, whether it's strength training and or bodybuilding. And he did have a massive impact on bodybuilding and the way it was done. And he did say things before they were proven. He wasn't afraid of looking at research, but even if it wasn't proven just yet, but he had an inkling on empirical, i.e. what he found to be true with his athletes and how he did things, he would go for it. So he was ahead of his time. And results speak. His systems and the way he thought, I really connected with. It's that German methodical, if you hit this and then, so like with his athletes, he'd take a sport and go, these are your predictor lifts. Okay, and again, everyone's different, but it would hit 70% of the population. So for an athletic performance, it could be like, your power snatch is this, your back squat needs to be this, and your incline press needs to be this. It just gives you great groundwork to work from. But yeah, spent a lot of time learning from him. One of the best things I had for him was private consults. So it was several hours on the phone. If you could fucking get hold of him. That was the biggest issue. Tying him down to a meeting and then having him pick up. He'd stand me up, but anyway, is what it is. But those are the best because you could ask the questions that are more pertinent to you.
Yeah.
I was one of those kids that just wanted to listen and just crack on the courses because I was too green to ask questions, too nervous. Now I could, I'd ask loads of questions, but those are the best. Best return on investment. 1 hour picking the questions and driving the consult and going, look, that's fine, Charles. Next question's going to be this, and I got some great information on those.
Where was he based?
Mainly Rhode Island when I was working with him or learning from him. Before then, Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
And then I think that's where he returned shortly before he passed.
Right.
Because there's more of an athlete base in and around that area. Rhode Island was a move, and then when he took himself away from Poliquin group and started the strength center, I think he went back to near where his daughter lives. I don't know.
You were telling me I think he was involved in other sports as well. Was it the Michael Owen? Did he get involved there with the?
Yeah, and don't forget Charles told all the stories. So whether this I remember things like it was that, and then maybe it's different. But he was sent Michael Owen. I remember him and Clark were talking about it. Clark Flynn, another one of his athletes, and he was sent Michael Owen apparently when he was at Newcastle to fix his injury problems. So I remember the basic premise of the story was his length tensions in his posterior chain, his hamstring was so tight he didn't need strengthening, he needed flexibility and mobility. So he stretched him out, did what he could do within a week strength training, which with a football it's not much, but can show some stuff, and then sent him back to Newcastle. And at that point he'd scored something like 12 goals in that game. It was his best period. Then Allardyce gets sacked, and they had arranged, they were like, look, he needs to come back to me every 3 months was the agreement, which is easy for a footballer, right? So blank check. And then Allardyce got sacked, so that kind of thing went under the carpet. But yeah. So
somebody new starting out, where would you point that for Charles?
T-Nation articles. T-Nation articles. There's now, I think they're finally getting to the bottom of the dispute between what was Strength Sensei Legacy, which wasn't legal, or whatever you want to call it. It was Charles's students running his old business after he passed, and then you've got the real Strength Sensei .inc or something, and you can find, I think, Andre Benoit. I think if you're going to trust anybody with Charles, Andre Benoit is the guy that would know most. He would probably know everything plus stuff. So he's directing, and I think he's controlling the dojo and all the information, all Charles's intellectual property, basically, and putting it out. So there's articles on there. There's articles on T-Nation that will be around forever. I don't think they're going to remove them. They're good. And then there's not many videos, but there's some stuff. I don't know if Strength Sensei Legacy still have them online, but there's the odd interview he does. He was very good with interviews. He did some with Mark Bell on Super Training. That was a good one. One with Tim Ferriss, Dave Asprey, Bulletproof Radio. So there's some stuff on YouTube, but he wouldn't let you film.
Oh, interesting.
He was he'd scream at you. And I don't know if it was a paranoia, but he didn't want people, being able to take his intellectual property and steal it and post it online. He was. I remember somebody typing in one of the biosignature seminars, because they did it several times because it was always upgraded, and he screamed at them because he thought he was filmed. They were being filmed. He was being filmed, and it wasn't. It was just anyway. He wouldn't let you. He got you a thing about that. So you had to be good with your recall and good with your note taking.
Excellent. Did he ever make it here?
Yeah. He made it here a few times. He had a holiday here once. He was staying in Southampton. He built up a rapport with people locally because he presented his biosignature here for two different times, and he came in and used the place as a hub to train. He was always impressed at how we'd obviously invest and reinvest in the equipment, and he'd watch my coaches in action, which might have been daunting for them, but they were all doing, following his principles. I'll always remember him telling about the chin-up story. So he was like very impressed that 100% of your clients and obviously your coaches are making people pause for two reps and 2 seconds in the chin-up, which I was like, yes, I've got a win. I've got the nod from my mentor. Made you feel on top of the world. But he spent quite a few times training here.
Excellent. Okay, well, I think we've come to the end of our allotted half hour.
Yeah,
we've got through some good questions there.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No. What we'll do is take all the leftover questions and maybe either develop something. I think there was one really good question regarding how we work with our clients nutritionally.
Yes.
And how we exact change nutritionally. I think that's going to be a great future podcast.
Mm-hmm.
That'll raise some areas we can look at.
And to everybody out there, keep these ideas coming in. If we like them, we'll sit down and talk about them.
If we don't, we won't.
Yeah, we'll pretend they never came in.
Yeah.
So thanks again then, Tom.
Cheers.